Yo, what's good, everyone? Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prodigy Podcast. My name is Tyler Anderson. I will be your host. I'm recording this episode on September 2nd, 2024. And in this podcast episode, we are going to be going over my 2024 Megalabowl draft. If you're not familiar with the Megalabowl, we're going to get right into kind of what it is, and then we'll get into how the draft went. Think of it as sort of like a mock draft video, except this is a real life draft, and there are some special implications because of this league. But before we get into that, please make sure to drop a like if you're watching on YouTube, and make sure to subscribe or follow wherever you are watching. If you do want the YouTube, head over to the Fantasy Football Prodigy on YouTube. Did I say YouTube enough? All right, let's get into what is the Megalabowl. So hide that for now. Okay. Hold on, Tyreek Hill. We'll need you in a second. If you are listening to this podcast, you have probably heard of the Fantasy Footballers podcast. They're kind of like the top fantasy football podcast. And part of what they have, in addition to a podcast and a million other things, is they host the Fantasy Footballers Megalabowl. It's the biggest fantasy football league in the world. You get put in a league with, I think it's 12 team leagues, yes. But in the end, you're competing against like a ton of people, and then like people from each league make the playoffs, and then they compete against each other. It's this big thing. So you can kind of read the rules right here. The regular season is weeks 1 through 14, just like a normal 12-team league. Then the playoffs are weeks 15, 16, and 17. To make the playoffs, you must finish week 14 in the top 6 of your league, where after that you will compete against the other people that made the playoffs. You get one entry per person who has a Foot Clan membership. And if you win, it's the highest score at the end of the Week 17 championship. In addition to being the champion, you get a spot in their 2025 Fantasy Footballers Listener League, and you get a free Foot Clan Ultimate membership for life, which is pretty sweet. Even if you don't win the whole thing, though, it is just a fun league because a lot of people that play in these leagues supposedly are into fantasy football. Granted, in my league, there were some, we'll call them home league type players. We'll get into that later. Yeah, it's a 12-team league, 14 rounds, 1 QB, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 2 flexes, and then 1 DST, no kicker, only 5 bench spots, 2 IR spots. And then an interesting rule is that in the playoffs, you cannot add players, which is a bit interesting, but I think it kind of makes sense that they do it that way, maybe. Because you're competing, because the pool kind of changes of the players who are actually playing, like the fantasy players who are playing. But anyways, with that being said, let's get right into the draft. So I'm going to use Tyreek Hill here to sort of cover up the draft board. Maybe there's a better way to do this, but if there is, please let me know, because I don't know what that way is. Okay, so this is my team right here. TMJA with the Bill Belichick photo. I had the 4th overall pick in this draft. First off the board, Christian McCaffrey, 49ers running back, superstar running back, pretty much the consensus 101. If you want to go one of those top wide receivers, I get it. But he's pretty much the best player in fantasy when on the field, and it's not really close. Next up, we got CeeDee Lamb. Still no surprises, but then it says team 2, but they're drafting 3rd. This team was auto-drafting, so I was fortunate enough. Now, listen, I'm a Vikings fan, but I was fortunate enough to draft right after this auto drafting team, because they took Justin Jefferson, number 3 overall. You know, Kirk Cousins is gone from the Vikings. They have Sam Darnold in there. JJ McCarthy, their first round rookie pick at QB, is out for the year. And even if McCarthy did play, he's a rookie. Sometimes rookies don't necessarily supply the fantasy production needed to pay off on high ADP receivers. But to go 3rd overall is crazy. I'm surprised that the auto draft gave him Jefferson there. But what that did allow me to do was get a player that you could argue should be going 101, and that's Tyreek Hill, wide receiver of the Miami Dolphins. Again, like, I don't know why they took why the computer made him take Jefferson. Like, he still could have a good year, but he's still arguably the best receiver in the league. But just with the quarterback issues, like, you know, Sam Darnold is most likely not the answer unless he gets a crazy career resurgence. And he should still be, drafted relatively high, but third overall is crazy. But you know what? It let me get Tyreek Hill with the 4th pick. That is a steal. If I didn't get Tyreek Hill, I probably would have gone Bijan Robinson, who did go next. Him and Brees are very close. Jamar Chase goes next. He's also a guy who can really go anywhere in the top part of a draft, and I wouldn't blame you. Brees Hall goes next. Amon-Ra St. Brown, a guy who doesn't seem like he's in the same tier as Tyreek and Lamb and Chase, but he probably should be. But he's a very, very great pick there. And then AJ Brown, like in this spot at the end of the first round, I think there's a couple good players here. Like I love getting Amon-Ra there. If Brees or Robinson fall there, that's great. AJ Brown goes 9th overall. That's a great pick. Jahmyr Gibbs at 10th overall. I love that. Marvin Harrison Jr., rookie of the Arizona Cardinals, wide receiver, goes 11th overall. It's very spicy, but you're going to have to pay up if you want him. I'm typically not doing that, but he's a generational prospect. And then Garrett Wilson does go in the first round, 12th overall. Moving on to the second round here. If I could just simply move my man Tyreek. There we go. So to pair with Garrett Wilson, Jonathan Taylor goes next. RB of the Colts, Puka Nacua, Travis Etienne. And I don't want to read like the name and position of every single player. So if you do want video, you can see the draft board. Again, just go over to my YouTube channel. Just look up the Fantasy Football Prodigy. Should come up. Or the Fantasy Football Prodigy podcast. Either one, I should pop up. Travis Etienne of the Jags, Kyron Williams, Drake London, Brandon Ayuk. A little bit of a reach on Ayuk there. He did sign that contract, but still, that seems early, even knowing he is on the team. Derrick Henry goes next, Saquon Barkley, and then I take Chris Olave with my second round pick here. I was really torn. I was really thinking about taking Devon Achane there. I did draft him in another league on ESPN where his ADP is a little bit lower. So I did get a better value on Achane there. Achane also carries a little bit of risk just because there are other running backs in that backfield, mainly Raheem Mostert. And Achane did deal with injuries a little bit his rookie year. And I don't want to say he's injury prone, but he is undersized, which makes me think that he might miss games at times. But when he's on the field, there's no doubt he might be like the best running back for fantasy, other than maybe Christian McCaffrey. Like he's just crazy explosive. But I already did have Tyreek Hill as well, another Miami Dolphin. So I didn't want to go same team with my first 2 draft picks, even though it wouldn't necessarily be bad in this case because their offense is that good and these players are both league-winning type players. But I went with Olave, someone who I didn't necessarily like go into the draft thinking, oh, I have to get Olave. But I think at this value with, ETN, Kyron Williams, Derrick Henry, and Saquon Barkley off the board, I didn't really want to go Jacobs or Pacheco quite. I didn't want to reach on quarterback with Josh Allen. He's been like the quarterback 1 or 2 pretty much every year for the last handful of years. He did lose Stephon Diggs. I still think he'll be good, but there's a little bit more risk there with all the vacated targets there, with Gabe Davis also gone. He'll still be great for fantasy, but at this ADP, it felt a little spicy. Plus, I just know there's so many good quarterback values later. I didn't want to go QB. And I just knew that there were a handful of running backs that I liked that were still available. Whereas at wide receiver, there weren't as many names that I felt super confident in. To me, Chris Olave was sort of in a higher tier than some of the other receivers that were available. So I like to draft using tier-based drafting, where basically you put players sort of into buckets where you of similar expected outcomes. You can do that yourself. You can find tier-based rankings online. I was using the Fantasy Footballers tier-based ranking sheet as part of their ultimate draft kit. Like I'm a member of the whatever it is, I get everything. So I got that. So I do have my own opinions as well, but I was using that as a baseline. But basically, if I passed on Olave and I waited for a receiver to come back to me in the 3rd round, I didn't necessarily like my odds of getting someone that I like as much as Chris Olave. Whereas if I waited on running back, there were a handful of guys that I like pretty similar, where if I waited, I would likely get one of them in the third round, even if a few of them went. You know, if player A goes, I like player B just as much. If player B goes, I like player A just as much. So I went with Chris Olave. He's a good player. It didn't work out super well for fantasy last year. He didn't quite meet expectations, but he was still very good for fantasy. And this might be a bit of like a post hype. I don't want to call him a sleeper because he's in the second round, but last year there was so much buzz with him. This year you don't hear his name as much, but I still think he's worth this pick here. Devon Achane does go next. Josh Allen, first quarterback off the board. Josh Jacobs, 2 Joshes back to back. And then Deebo Samuel goes next in the third round. I should probably move this picture here so you can actually see the draft board. Deebo Samuel goes next. That's another, him and Chris Olave are guys I like a lot. I think I like Olave a little bit more, but when Deebo is healthy and on the field, I think he's a little bit underrated, honestly, but he does go in the third round, so wasn't super underrated in this draft. Isaiah Pacheco, Devontae Adams, and then James Cook. So yeah, like I took Chris Olave and it worked out really well in the second round, because if I had to take a receiver here, I would much rather have Olave than Devontae Adams or Nico or Mike Evans or Cooper Kupp. Even though I do like those guys, I just like Olave a little bit more. And I ended up taking James Cook, running back of the Buffalo Bills, who I like just about as much as Isaiah Pacheco, who went earlier. I think I like him more than Josh Jacobs. I like him about the same as Achane. I think they're different archetypes. Achane probably has more upside, but with all those vacated targets that I mentioned in Buffalo, I think a lot of those passes are going to go to James Cook. And then in the third round, I think he's a really good value at running back. So my first running back, James Cook of the Buffalo Bills. Next up, Jalen Hurts at QB, Nico Collins, Mike Evans, Cooper Kupp, Trey McBride, the first tight end off the board. He's usually not the first one, but Bowen here has he has a feeling. This guy has a feeling that he's going to be good. DJ Moore, Rachaad White, Sam Laporta, the typical first or second tight end off the board, goes with the last pick of the third. And then moving on to the fourth round. So after Laporta, the team takes Jalen Waddle. Next up, Pat Mahomes, DK Metcalf, a guy who I was hoping would make it back to me. Alvin Kamara, another player I was hoping would make it back to me. I'm big into both of those guys. If you saw my Guys episode, they're both on that list. Check it out on the channel. Or wherever you're listening, it's also an audio podcast. Travis Kelce of the Chiefs in the fourth round, probably not the same player he once was, just with the production he's going to have. But this is a big discount for Kelce. Normally, historically, he's been like a first or second rounder. Joe Mixon, Malik Neighbors, another rookie wide receiver, Michael Pittman, and then yes, Devontae Smith fell to me. Like, if you look at this round, like, I'm really not big on Neighbors. I think Pittman's all right, but I don't think he offers immense upside. And in a league like this, you kind of want some upside players, just because if and when you make the playoffs, you have to beat everybody. It's not just beating, your 12-team league. You got to make the playoffs and then stand out from the best of the best. So Pittman to me was not the pick there. I'm kind of out on Diggs. I'm just not betting on him to have that career resurgence. And even if he does still have it, there's other weapons there in Houston. Malik Neighbors is just going a little early for me, although I wouldn't be shocked if he does pay off at that ADP just because he's going to be hyper-targeted. But Devontae Smith, I know he's the number 2 for Philadelphia, but he has big game ability, and he's just a really good player. So as my wide receiver 3, Devontae Smith of the Philadelphia Eagles, I love that pick. I was thinking about Kenneth Walker as well, but again, if you kind of look at the players who were available, I kind of felt like I could wait on running back and hopefully I'd have one of value come back to me. Whereas, if you look at the wide receivers who go next, I just like Devontae Smith just a hair more than the guys that were there. So it was close, but I went Devontae Smith, then goes Stephon Diggs, Kenneth Walker, who I think is undervalued, Seattle Seahawks running back, Mark Andrews, a really good value in the fourth round. And then this team did something really smart after that Mark Andrews pick. He got the stack with Lamar Jackson, quarterback of the Ravens. So he's the Ravens tight end and quarterback, especially in leagues where you need that upside, that boom potential. Pairing those two guys together, if in the playoffs Lamar Jackson connects with Mark Andrews on multiple touchdowns, that's going to increase that probability that they outscore everyone in the league. Dalton Kincaid goes next, Zay Flowers, and then just like I was hoping, I did get a nice little running back to fall back to me in James Conner. I was kind of hoping him or Kenneth Walker would make it back to me, or even David Montgomery, who did go later. But James Conner to me is another great value. Not quite a my guy, but in contention. That Arizona Cardinals offense projects to be a lot better than it was last year. Kyler Murray is back and healthy. And he's been like quietly really good for fantasy, especially later in the year. The last couple of years, he's really put it on, like turned it on and put it together. I know they drafted Trey Benson, but I think Connor is still the clear lead back in this backfield and what should be a really good offense. And he's going to catch passes as well. After that goes T. Higgins, Aaron Jones, Tank Dell, Amari Cooper. I was considering Tank Dell as well, but ultimately I did not go with him. Amari Cooper, Rashee Rice. That's a pretty good value there in the 5th round. In some platforms, he's going a little bit later. This ADP is probably, about where he should go, maybe even a little later. But if on your wherever you're drafting, if he's going like in the 6th or 7th round still because of those off the field suspension concerns, I think you're good to draft him at a value, because I don't think it's looking more and more like he's gonna play this year. George Pickens goes next. George Kittle, I really like that pick at tight end, especially like I said in a league like this where you need that explosive week winning potential, because Kittle has that. He is not necessarily the most consistent year in and year out, but he does have huge game potential. Especially, if one of those other receivers, Ayuk or Debo, goes down, then, next up, David Montgomery, another pick I really like because I think he's still a solid running back to start each and every week, a really good value in the 5th round. But if something happens to Gibbs and he misses time, Montgomery becomes a high-end running back 1 for the Lions. Next up, Anthony Richardson in the 6th round. I don't hate that ADP. I don't like when Richardson or CJ Stroud, who also went in this round, go super high, but at this ADP, I don't hate that. I really don't. If he goes like, in like the upper rounds, that's where I'm like, okay, maybe let's chill out, but I don't hate that at all with his rushing upside. Jerome Ford goes in the 6th round. Again, I don't know what you're going to see some weird picks from this team. I don't know what they were doing. A bit strange. I like Jerome Ford as a 0 running back target late in the draft, but in the 6th round, that's absolutely way too early. I'm not even going to give more analysis on that. Like, just way too early. Evan Ingram, Kyler Murray, one of the guys I was hoping would make it back to me at quarterback. But there's some savvy players in this league. Plus, they listen to the fantasy footballers, a lot of them, or all of them. And I know they're kind of big on Kyler Murray, so it makes sense he went early in this draft. Same with Raheem Mostert. He's a really good value. I did pass on Achane, but I would not have minded scooping up Mostert in the 6th, or even if he fell to the 7th round. Kind of invest lower draft capital in a player who might even be better for fantasy than Achane by the end of the year. CJ Stroud goes next at quarterback. Kyle Pitts. I was considering taking Pitts actually at this ADP. I think he's a little undervalued. He had 1,000-yard year as a rookie. He struggled with bad quarterback play, surprise, surprise, and I believe he was injured last year. But he's got Kirk Cousins. I don't know if he'll be the same Kirk that he was before, but hey, man, he was once like the number 1 prospect. We got to get Kyle Pitts, and now he's here in the 6th. Wouldn't shock me either way if he's good or bad, but I was considering him. Calvin Ridley was another guy at wide receiver that I kind of wanted to scoop up on my team, but again, he's another player that the footballers do talk a lot about on their podcast, so it makes sense that, a manager kind of got the same idea and scooped him up here in the 6th. And then I end up going with Ramondre Stevenson, running back of the Patriots. Kind of like Olave, not necessarily a player that I went into the draft thinking like I'm targeting this player, but at this value, I just liked it. I really like the value. I was considering going quarterback here because I looked at the remaining quarterbacks. You had like Burrow, Dak Prescott, Jaden Daniels, Jordan Love, Tua, Lawrence, Goff, Herbert, Purdy, Caleb Williams. But I was thinking like, okay, we're getting to a point where there's a handful of quarterbacks that I really want that offer like kind of some big boom potential that I'm going to need in this league. But I think I can get one of those guys with my next pick. So I go with the running back, Ramondre Stevenson, because I don't really like the next guys. DeAndre Swift, I'm not a big fan of. Najee Harris, who goes in the next round. I think he'll be all right, but I just don't think it's going to be like that great. Zamir White, Tony Pollard, Brian Robinson. Like, to me, Ramondre Stevenson was just a little higher, especially if he gets some pass catching work. So I know it's a bad offense, but I think at this ADP, I like Ramondre. I passed on quarterback in hopes that one of the guys I like would fall to me, and it fell perfectly. So Joe Burrow goes next, Christian Kirk, DeAndre Swift, Terry McLaurin, Najee Harris, Rome Odunze, and then Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, falls to me. To me, he was like the last of a tier where between him and Burrow, I really wanted to get one of those two. If both of them went, I would have waited another round at quarterback and gotten a different guy, but that was maybe a tier lower. But I love getting Dak. He really turned it on at the end of last year, won people leagues. He's always good for fantasy. He might not be as good as he was at the end of last year all the time, but they're going to have to throw the ball a ton. I mean, their backfield is weak, and they're going to throw it a fair amount. At the very least, he's going to be a solid quarterback one, could be a league winner. Zamir White goes next. Jaden Reed, Brian Thomas, like that rookie receiver pick there. This is kind of where I kind of was looking at rookies versus taking, Harrison in the first or Neighbors in the fourth. Taking Brian Thomas in the seventh, that's a crazy value. Tony Pollard goes next. Brian Robinson, I really do like that value at running back. I was hoping he would make it back to me, but it wasn't even close. Javonte Williams, Kendre Miller, the same team that took Jerome Ford takes Kendre Miller. Again, not sure what they're doing. Very odd. But Chris Godwin goes next. And then moving on to the 8th round, we got Keenan Allen, Xavier Worthy, another rookie receiver, Caleb Williams at quarterback, a bit of a reach there, in my opinion. Keon Coleman, another rookie. So rookie in Worthy, rookie in Williams, rookie in Coleman, and then a rookie in Jaden Daniels. I was almost thinking about taking Daniels with my next pick just because I think he's a crazy value. I know I just said Williams was a reach, but Daniels offers crazy rushing upside, which is huge at this ADP. But the footballers kind of have talked up Daniels a little bit, so it makes sense he maybe went a little earlier than he does in other leagues. But Christian Watson goes next, then his teammate Jordan Love. And the tight end that I was targeting at this point in my head, Jake Ferguson, goes the pick before me. So in my head, I'm on the clock. I have to make a decision. Do I take a tight end or do I take another position? Because I still need a tight end and it is thinning. There are 2 players left that I am comfortable starting. And one of them I'm not even super comfortable starting, but we have Brock Bowers of the Raiders and David Njoku of the Browns. So there's 2 tight ends where if I get them next round, I'm pretty happy with it. And then this is important to do. I look at the draft board and I say, okay, there's 3 teams between this pick and my next pick. So they're going to each draft once. 2 of them have a tight end. And they're not auto drafting. So realistically, they shouldn't take a tight end. One of the teams needs a tight end. Even if they take 1 tight end, I like 2 guys that are remaining. So even if one of them gets taken, I like the other one just as much as the one who got taken. So I can afford to wait around. And what I did with that opportunity was I took Zach Moss, running back of the Bengals. If he is the starter and gets the workload and gets the goal line and the offense is clicking, this could be a crazy value, or this pick could blow up in my face. There's pros and cons to this pick. I don't want to get too into it. I want to get through this draft, but I did go with Zach Moss. I was thinking about Jonathan Brooks, the rookie, who, when he comes back, might have potential to be, the guy and be a good player, but I don't like the Cardinals offense or the Panthers offense. I love the Cardinals offense. I don't like the Panthers offense. Plus, it is a little crowded with Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders there. I'm not saying those guys are as good as Brooks, but Brooks coming off the ACL, they might ease him in, and at best, we might see him in a committee. He might be the best player in a committee, but best player of a committee on a projected bad offense, I'm going to go with Zach Moss and bet on the offense there. So I'm hoping that a tight end makes it back to me. Brock Bowers did go to that team who needed a tight end. And just like that, my very last tight end in this tier that I'm comfortable starting falls back to me. So it goes Ladd McConkey, Deontay Johnson, Jalen Warren, and then David Njoku, tight end of the Cleveland Browns. I played it perfectly. I'm not saying I like Njoku as much as like Mark Andrews or Kelsey, but to get him in the 9th as the last tier of tight end that I'm happy with, I love it. It worked out perfectly in my favor. If Njoku for some reason would have gone, I just would have waited till pretty much the end of the draft and probably grabbed Taysom Hill or someone. But that worked out very well. I have him in a couple leagues. I would have rather had Ferguson around earlier just because I have Dak Prescott, and I could have had the stack. Ferguson could potentially have some positive touchdown regression, but Njoku, I'm cool with it. Okay. I know he put up a lot of his production with Flacco. Deshaun Watson is the quarterback now. But after what they saw last year, I'm hoping they make him a focal point of that offense and at least try to force him the ball a little bit because he's an athletic freak. Next up, JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, back-to-back LA Chargers backfield picks, Devin Singletary, Tajay Spears, a little bit of a running back run there, DeAndre Hopkins, Jamison Williams. That's a nice little upside pick in a league like this. And if he's not good, you just cut him. Chase Brown, another Cincinnati Bengals running back. And then on to the next round, we got Tua, Austin Eckler, TJ Hawkinson, Rico Dowdle, Trey Benson, and Blake Corum go off the board. I was hoping one of those two handcuffs fell to me, or Rico Dowdle. Khalil Shakir, Nick Chubb, and then I end up going with Ezekiel Elliott of the Cowboys. Rico Dowdle, the other kind of running back of that committee, goes earlier. They also signed Dalvin Cook, but wouldn't be surprised if Zeke is the most valuable member of this backfield just because he's the veteran. He's lost a step, but he'll probably get the goal line work, might catch some passes, and it's going to be a good offense. So he doesn't need to be super efficient to be a good value in the 10th round, as long as he can hold on to that starting position or at least lead the committee. Marquise Hollywood Brown, Chuba Hubbard, really good zero running back target there. Might actually start for this team. You got CeeDee Lamb, Pacheco, Walker at those running back spots, and Christian Kirk. So those are kind of the running back and wide receiver spots. And then we have two flexes. So Najee Harris, Jordan Addison, Deontay Johnson, and Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard might start for this team to start the year as Brooks gets healthy. So that's a pretty good pick for that team. Cortland Sutton. And then into the next round here, the 11th round, we got Jaleel McLaughlin. A guy that I was kind of, maybe hoping would fall to me. I think he's a little bit undervalued in the 11th round in that Sean Payton offense. No more Samaje Perine, forgot his name almost. He's on the Chiefs now. So it's McLaughlin and Javonte Williams and Estime, who they drafted. So I think McLaughlin's going to have a role. And if Javonte hasn't recovered more and looks better from that devastating injury he had, McLaughlin might be a crazy value. Curtis Samuel goes next. Brock Purdy. I'm on the clock. I go Josh Palmer. I just think he's a solid pick in the 11th round. The Chargers project to be kind of more of a running team, lean on the running game and hopefully their defense if they can play well. But they do have Justin Herbert at quarterback. They lost Keenan Allen. They lost Mike Williams. And when Palmer has had opportunities to get meaningful snaps for this team, he's come through a lot of the time and been a solid fantasy contributor. Someone I'm not expecting to be a league winner, but as my wide receiver 4, because I started wide receiver heavy, but it had been a while since I took a receiver, and I really like that value on him. So I'm like, you know what? Let's take Palmer, someone who, depending on injuries or bye weeks, might actually crack my lineup. Jalen Wright goes next, running back of the Dolphins. I really like drafting him late. He went a little earlier than I had hoped. I was hoping to maybe get a share of him in this league, but he went earlier than I expected. But if one injury happens to Achane or Mostert, I think Wright is going to be the number one pickup of that week. And those guys have both had their injury concerns. So next up, Adonai Mitchell, Pat Freiermuth. At this range of tight end, I think Freiermuth is a good pick. Zach Charbonnet, Jacoby Myers, Jalen Polk, Dallas Goedert, Ty Chandler. And then on to the 12th round, we got Tyler Algier, Jared Goff, Trevor Lawrence, Marshawn Lloyd, Romeo Dobbs, Xavier Lee Geth as a really good rookie receiver value there. Antonio Gibson, Justin Herbert, who I just mentioned, doesn't go till the 12th round. I would have thought of maybe scooping him up just because I know the situation isn't great, but he's still a really great quarterback, and he's going to have to throw the ball a little bit. It could kind of be like that Ryan Tannehill year where he didn't necessarily throw a lot. They leaned on Derrick Henry, but he was very efficient, had some play action passes. So Herbert in the 12th round is a pretty good value. Although he did actually get dropped, I will reveal, after the draft for someone else. But anyways, I ended up taking Tyler Lockett of the Seahawks. His career, it's kind of weird. He's definitely old. He's older. He's not the same player he once was. And they do have DK Metcalf and JSN there as well. But they just signed him to a new extension, I believe. And like, it wasn't his best year last year, but I still think in the 12th round, he can be a value. Not as a wide receiver 1 or even a wide receiver 2, but a flex or someone to play on a bye week or injury might be worth it here. And if not, at this point, I could just cut him if he doesn't work out. He's always been perennially undervalued, so I thought, why not get him here in the 12th round, see what happens. And plus, I think Geno might have a better year than he did last year. His first year in Seattle, overachieved. Last year, I think he underachieved. I think they're going to straighten some things out with the new offensive coordinator. And, you know, I don't think Geno Smith and that passing offense was as bad as some of the numbers indicated. I just think it just didn't quite click. I was just looking at some numbers about that. I don't want to get too into it, but I think there is potential for that offense to be better. Let's just leave it at that. Dalton Schultz goes next, Mike Williams, Cole Kmet, and then we have our first defense, San Francisco 49ers, Luke Musgrave, New York Jets, and then I'm on the clock again. I go another receiver just for depth. Darnell Mooney, a guy who I think is a little undervalued. I thought about Rashid Shaheed, but I have Olave. I don't really want Gabe Davis. I could have gone like with Ray Davis, Buffalo Bills running back to handcuff Cook, but I go with Mooney. I don't think he's being talked about much. Everyone's hyping up Drake London and Bijan Robinson, and the Falcons are going to be great. But meanwhile, the wide receiver 2 for that team, other than maybe, Kyle Pitts is the tight end, he'll probably be the second target. And I guess, Robinson's going to catch passes too. Okay, so maybe he's the 4th target, but Mooney I think is a value here in the 13th round. And if not, you know what? I cut him. All right. And then moving on, Gabe Davis, Cowboys defense, Rashid Shaheed, Isaiah Likely. I like the Likely pick. He has Kelsey, but if Andrews goes down, Likely becomes a big value trade piece, so not bad. And then Taysom Hill, I thought about him instead of Mooney, but I did go with Mooney. Taysom goes in the same round later on. Ravens D, Chiefs D, Ray Davis. Is it Ray Davis or Ray Davis? For some reason, I thought it was Ray Davis. It's just Ray Davis. I don't know why I had that in my head, but from now on in this channel, we're going to refer to him as Ray. And then the final round, the 14th round, Browns defense, Steelers defense, Dontavian Wicks, Eagles D, Vidal, what's his name? Kamani Vidal, running back, Chargers rookie. Dolphins D, Jalen Tolbert, Commanders defense, and then I take the Bengals defense. They have a good week 1 matchup. We'll get into that later. Tracy, Tyrone Tracy, right? That's his name. I'm forgetting people's first names here at the end of the draft here. Giants defense, and then Jerry Jeudy is Mr. Unanimous. Or what do they call it? Mr. Anonymous. Mr. Unanimous. What do they call him? Shoot, I don't remember. But anyways, this is my team. Is it better to look at it? Nah, we'll look at it here. So as you can see, Stafford did get cut, or Stafford got picked up. Let me rephrase this for the 3rd time. Justin Herbert did get dropped for Matt Stafford in this league. I'm not sure what that's about, but it did happen. Yeah. So this is my team. Wow, really ending this off with a bang, huh? How about I get rid of this image? There we go. Okay, so I'll move my face cam so you YouTube viewers can actually see what I'm looking at. But Dak Prescott is my QB. At running back, we have James Cook, James Conner, Ramondre Stevenson, Zeke, and Zach Moss. So I really like those top 2. Ramondre might be a value, and then a little bit of depth with Zeke and Zach Moss. At wide receiver, we have Tyreek Hill, Devontae Smith, Chris Olave, and then a trio of flex type guys in Tyler Lockett, Darnell Mooney, and Josh Palmer. And then at tight end, I have David Njoku. And then I picked up the Bengals defense. They are at home against the Patriots in week 1. I will be streaming defenses week by week, targeting those bad offenses. And the Patriots do project to be a not great offense. Jacoby Myers is starting, which is probably better in terms of just not making mistakes in week 1. So if Drake May was starting, the Bengals would probably be a better play just because he might make some rookie mistakes, but I still like it. I don't think the Patriots are going to light it up. And yeah, I think it's a really solid team here. Here's one more look at the draft board if you want to see it. And yeah, boys and girls and ladies and jellyfish, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you for watching or listening. I really appreciate it. Please make sure to drop a like if you can do that wherever you're watching or listening, and make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you are enjoying the content. I hope this helped you become a fantasy football prodigy. I will see you guys in the next one. Good luck in your drafts if they haven't happened yet, or if they have happened, congrats on the championship, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.